Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. It was not long after that Donald Trump's home was raided by the FBI because he was illegally stashing hundreds of classified documents there, refusing to give them back, that President Joe Biden's team did a check of his own residences and found some of his own. While packing up his office at the Penn Biden Center, the president's lawyers discovered classified documents from the Obama administration, turned them over to the National Archives. The lawyers later found more documents at Biden's home in Delaware, the vast majority of them actually notes that Biden himself made. But with special counsel Jack Smith already investigating Donald Trump, Attorney General Merrick Garland, rightly I think, appointed a special counsel to investigate the Biden matter as well. Yesterday, that special counsel, a man named Robert Hur, did his best James Comey impression. He cleared the president of wrongdoing conclusively, saying in the very first sentence of his report that no criminal charges are warranted in this matter. But he went on to essentially give the president a political roughing up in a report that drips with contempt and condescension. I mean, really, you should look at the first page of this thing. Within the first few paragraphs, he paints President Biden as some sort of self-obsessed egotist for wanting to preserve documents from his life and career. I'm quoting him here. Mr. Biden has long seen himself as a historic figure. He believed his record during decades in the Senate made him worthy of the presidency. He collected papers and artifacts related to significant issues and events in his career. He used these materials to document his legacy and to cite as evidence that he was a man of presidential timber. What the hell, man? And of course, there was this stinging assessment. Again, this actually isn't an assessment. I want to be clear here. This is a hypothetical of how he thinks Biden would defend himself as trial. He says this: at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Now, again, let's be clear about where this is coming from. Robert Hur is a conservative Republican, former clerk for then Chief Justice William Rehnquist, served in the Department of Justice under Donald Trump, working as a top advisor to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Trump then nominated him to be U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland. And I think the reason that Hur's report struck a nerve with so many people yesterday is that it reminded them of the incalculable damage that FBI Director James Comey did back in 2016. Comey also cleared Hillary Clinton of any wrongdoing related to her handling of classified information. But, like her, he went on to share all sorts of thoughts about the Democratic presidential nominee's bad behavior with her emails. All this got me thinking about an interesting trend in our modern politics about who investigates a sitting president or presidential candidate. So 30 years ago in 1994, Kenneth Starr was appointed as independent counsel overseeing the Whitewater investigation to President Bill Clinton. Of course, Starr was a virulently partisan Republican, as his own report revealed. In fact, you may remember Starr actually returned to the political stage after a huge scandal over sexual abuse and assault at a school that he ran, to the political stage to defend Donald Trump during his first impeachment trial. So that was during Clinton. You got a Republican investigating the Democrat. Then there was George W. Bush. And there was an investigation of the public leaking of a CIA agent's identity to get back at a whistleblower who was saying that the Bush administration was lying about WMD. So the Republican president's deputy attorney general at the time, remember this guy, James Comey, chose another Bush appointee, another guy appointed by a Republican, U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald, to serve as special counsel in that case. By 2015, Republican James Comey was the FBI director. He launched a criminal investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. Then came Donald Trump and the investigation into his campaign's dealing with Russia. Rod Rosenstein appointed Robert Mueller as special counsel. Remember that? A lifelong Republican who served in several Republican administrations, including in the Bush years. That brings us back to Republican Robert Hur. You seeing a pattern?
Starr, a Reagan Republican, is a former federal appeals judge and served as George Bush's Solicitor General.
Comey and Fitzgerald are both Bush political appointees and carry the same baggage as John Ashcroft, said Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts.
Both Robert Mueller and James Comey are lifelong Republicans. Both were high-level George W. Bush appointees.
Rob Hur is a registered Republican who served in the top ranks of President Trump's Justice Department.
So there's a clear pattern here. It's consistent, at least. Democrats get investigated by Republicans, while Republicans get investigated by Republicans. Now, we're also seeing what happens when Republicans judge Republicans. The news of the closing of Biden's classified documents case may have reminded you, as it did me, oh, right, there is still an ongoing criminal case against Donald Trump for his handling of classified documents at his retirement home in Florida. Trump faces a total of 40 felony charges in that case, including willful retention of national defense information in violation of the Espionage Act. And in fact, Special Counsel Hur was at lengths to point out the vast difference between the Biden case and this one. But that case, the criminal one pending against the guy who's going to be the Republican nominee, has kind of disappeared off the radar, in large part because who is in charge of it? District Judge Aileen Cannon, also conservative, member of the Federalist Society, appointed by Donald Trump himself. And back in 2022, Judge Cannon burst on the scene with a frankly ludicrous ruling in Trump's favor right after the FBI searched Mar-a-Lago, a decision so flagrantly wrong that the federal appeals court above her, a panel of 3 Republican nominees, unanimously reversed it in a scathing ruling. But that embarrassment has not seemed to affect Judge Cannon at all. Since she was assigned to the case last summer, Cannon has not made any effort to seem like a more fair-minded arbiter of justice. Aileen Cannon knows that Donald Trump wants to delay his trial in this matter until after the election. And she can make that happen if she wishes. I mean, judges can move cases as swiftly or as slowly as they like, to be honest. Over and over again, Judge Cannon has ruled against the government as they try to keep the case moving towards trial. Just today, she ordered Special Counsel Jack Smith's team to hand over documents to Trump's lawyers that include the names of dozens of people who participated in the investigation. And here's the thing. The reason they don't want to hand them over to Trump's lawyers, Smith's office says, is because the documents also describe threats made to prospective witnesses. She told them they got to hand them over anyway. This is the dilemma we face in the era of Donald Trump as he forces a huge, constant, daily test of our entire judicial system and rule of law, right? Trump wants it both ways. He claims all efforts to bring him to justice are a partisan attack. There's no such thing as neutral justice or equal justice. But that's aspirational. He wants to use the justice system and his supporters within it for his own partisan aims. In the case of Aileen Cannon, it looks like what it looks like when Donald Trump gets his way. One of the most watched special elections in a long time is going to take place in New York on Tuesday. It is a congressional district that Biden won by double digits in 2020. Then it got redistricted. And a heretofore obscure gentleman named George Santos won the new district as a Republican in 2022 by nearly 8 points. Now, after Santos' ignominious flameout and expulsion from Congress, well, they got to have a special election to replace him. And this election pits the guy who used to represent the old district in Congress, Tom Suozzi, who's a staunchly centrist Democrat, against a relative newcomer, Mazi Pilip, who is a county legislator. Despite the fact that George Santos managed to escape vetting and get elected, to the great embarrassment, really, of everyone, Pilip's financial disclosures in the race have raised questions, and she has not been particularly clear or detailed about, like, what her political positions are. Last night, at the only debate in this election, here's what she had to say when the candidates were asked about abortion.
It is a personal decision, a personal choice. So every woman should have that choice. I'm not going to tell her what to do. And I made it so clear. It's so personal to me.
So you're pro-choice?
Again, this is a personal choice. Every woman will make that decision. You have been lying to the public. Now you have the opportunity to fix it. Go ahead.
I'm asking you very clearly. Are you pro-choice?
I made it again. It's a personal decision.
Just say you're pro-choice.
Mazi Pilip, I am pro-life. This is me.
Okay.
Marissa Kabas is an MSNBC columnist, author of the Handbasket newsletter, which I recommend. She's our go-to reporter on the George Santos scandals. She's been closely following the race to replace him. Marissa, welcome.
Thank you.
I mean, so here's my understanding of the dynamic here. That this is a district that's probably 65-35 pro-choice, pro-Roe v. Wade at least, right?
Yes.
Pilip understands that. Am I right? It seems like she is literally saying, I am pro-life and I am pro-choice as her position on abortion.
Well, she just doesn't want to say the actual words, I am pro-choice, because that could haunt her forever in the Republican Party. And she's trying to skirt the line a little bit. And so she doesn't want that soundbite. But
oh, I see. That's what it's about. It's about for her future.
Yes. Oh, she has aspirations. She wants to go places, and this is her first stepping stone.
Right. So she's doing this thing, which this is now the sort of cutting edge of Republican messaging. I am pro-life, and every woman should get to choose if they have an abortion. right? This is sort of what she's saying?
Yes. She's a mother of 7, so she doesn't want to alienate religious voters or people with a lot of children. And so she's sort of like playing both sides. She's like, you can choose whatever you want to do. And she doesn't support a national abortion ban. She says.
She says that.
She says.
She says. I mean, we'll see. One of the things that I think is the context here for why this race is going to be so heavily watched is that there's a very thin majority in a Republican Congress. Have you seen anything from her that would indicate that this is not a person who's basically going to end up empowering a Republican majority if that's how she's elected?
I don't think she's going to be any sort of stalwart or any sort of, big change maker. She's not going to make a splash. I think she's going to go in there and just go along with the party line because that's what Santos did and that's what they need. And I'm sure she's been telegraphed that message.
This is an interesting district. The latest polling had Swazi up by 4, but I think I've talked to a lot of people in this district, they think it's like, they literally think it's going to be like 500 votes. They think it's like multiple people said it's the closest race I've worked on. And one of the things that's been very striking to me is that the sort of migrant border issue is playing enormously in the district.
Yeah, you would think that the district was on the Texas border based on how much they're talking about it. They did a candidate forum a couple of weeks ago on a local news station, and if I took a shot every time she said border, I would be dead by now. I mean, it was crazy. And it just seems like she's just hitting it, and hoping that that's what sticks. It's sort of the tough on crime thing that we did in 2022 that got a lot of Republican votes, and that brought us Santos sort of in that red wave.
It seems to me like there's been a little bit of a crossfade between, I mean, what you saw in New York was New York Republicans overperformed the national party. They won 5 or 6 seats that people didn't necessarily expect. It happened in the sort of New York Post ambit. I mean, really, like where the Murdoch empire was just flogging the crime issue. Is it still crime, or has it been? It seems to me like they've sort of switched from crime to migrants.
It's migrant crime.
Right. Oh, yes. The perfect. That's right. Yes, that's the perfect.
Yeah. As you were talking about before, I mean, with this Curtis Sliwa video and trying to make it seem like these illegal criminals are overrunning our borders, that's the message that she's trying to get through. It's not that immigrants are bad, it's that these dangerous immigrants are bad. And she complained about a playground being near a migrant shelter in the district.
It seems to me, too, Swazi is a sort of very known quantity. He represented the district. He left to go run and challenge Kathy Hochul for governor in the primary from her right. I mean, he was the conservative Democrat. He is a conservative Democrat for sure. Which is more in line with that district. That is not a district that's going to elect AOC. I just don't get a sense. She doesn't do a lot of events. I just don't get a sense of what her politics are, really.
Well, she's from Israel. And we're in the midst of this very pivotal time about Israel. And I think it was a really cynical gambit by the local Republican Party. He said, oh, we have an Israeli ex-soldier who could kind of step up for the special election. We have no time to figure this out. And so they just thought voters would say, oh, Israel, yay, amazing. Let's go for it.
And obviously it's a very pro-Israel district in terms of the politics.
Very much so, but there's no daylight between her and Swazi on Israel.
Right. And it seems like Swazi is also trying to make sure there's not much daylight on immigrants either. I mean, he's really he's sort of running on the right on those two topics. You cannot overstate how much vile demagoguery about migrants constantly appears on Fox News day in, day out.
This is a government jobs program that lets in more migrants.
Not to mention how much we're paying for the migrants' kids to go to school.
But now the migrants are shutting down the hospitals in Denver more than COVID ever did.
We shouldn't be allowing even one migrant into the country.
Isn't this really an attempt, ultimately, to destroy the country internally?
That's exactly what it is.
It's poisonous stuff, and Fox News executives don't seem to care if what they're saying is true, as quite famously demonstrated when they paid out a 9-figure settlement to Dominion voting machines, and when they defended a now former primetime host from a slander lawsuit by just telling the court his Fox News show did not really do news, so he couldn't be guilty of defamation. Which brings us to what happened the other night. Fox News host Sean Hannity tried to get some synergy with another brand you might remember from the 80s. The Guardian Angels and their vigilante founder, Curtis Sliwa. Do you remember him? His gang was going to make the streets safe for regular people by rooting out criminals, as he told the Today Show back in 1982.
Because the criminal is very violent and operates in what we call the wolf packs. You see them by the way they dress, their style, almost like modern-day pirates, and that's what keeps you in fear. once they've smelled fear from you, once they've seen you change your path of entry or to cross the street from where they're hanging out, they descend upon you like wolves.
Oh, my God, like a time warp to my childhood in the Bronx. Fast forward to Tuesday night when Hannity interviewed Curtis Sliwa live in Times Square, about 40 years older, back in his costume like the KISS reunion tour, talking about the hellscape that is New York under the migrant invasion. And they had a remarkable Fox TV moment.
If you divide 53 million by 500, that's a $106,000 debit card. Not a bad deal. I don't think they're giving them to vets that are homeless in New York City. Not that I've heard, Curtis.
Well, in fact, our guys have just taken down one of the migrant guys right here on the corner, 42nd and 7th. While all this
Can you pan the camera?
They've taken over. They've taken over. You'd like the camera over there if at all possible.
Yep. You got your key open, guys.
He is out of control. Out of control. They had been shoplifting first. The guardian angel spotted them, stopped them. He resisted. And let's just say we gave him a little pain compliance. His mother back in Venezuela felt the vibrations. He's sucking concrete.
What a despicable, despicable exhibition. So Sliwa says the man they were assaulting was a migrant shoplifter, the one that was sucking at concrete. A perfect story for that Donald Trump and Fox News are telling their audience about the illegals and the rampant crime, except, guess what? After the cameras turned off, a little more reporting and digging revealed that the man Sliwa's gang wrestled down was not a migrant, but, drumroll, a New Yorker from the Bronx. And while Sliwa claimed he was a shoplifter, there was no evidence of that, and he was not charged with shoplifting by the police. He was issued a disorderly conduct summons, apparently for being disruptive during Curtis's live shot. In other words, a New Yorker in the middle of Times Square was interrupting a live shot of Curtis Sliwa, and his goons assaulted him. Yesterday, Fox once again had to do some cleanup to avoid another lawsuit.
Now, Curtis said that the man was a migrant and that he was shoplifting. Fox News has since spoken to the NYPD. Apparently, the statements made by Curtis that the man is a migrant is not true. Curtis said, in part, quote, "I shouldn't have been listening to the crowd. That was my mistake. I should not have had that knee-jerk reaction." Again, on this show, we always want to set the record straight.
Oh, they sure do. Some good advice there, life advice generally for folks. I shouldn't have been listening to the crowd and shouldn't have had the knee-jerk reaction. You know, in America, there is a real issue we have right now with migration flows at the southern border, both in terms of what danger and uncertainty it presents for the people that are showing up there, and also the sort of strain it puts on various social systems here in New York and Denver and Chicago and a whole bunch of other places. It is a real thing, and there's lots of folks working very hard to deal with it. And then there's the disgusting garbage that is being pumped out by Fox and other parts of the Rupert Murdoch empire, like the New York Post. Just the vilest, most dehumanizing, disgusting filth you can imagine. Do you remember the nationwide shoplifting panic that turned out to be completely belied by the statistics? Or the splashy stories of a migrant caravan apocalypse that never came? Please, remember those every time you hear a viral story in a city that, by the way, where crime has dropped significantly last year during the migrant surge. When you hear one of those viral stories, I am urging everyone, in the words of Curtis Sliwa, don't have a knee-jerk reaction. Wait for a bit for the truth to emerge.